Well, there are growing concerns over the current education system. So about 40,000 young people in over 150 countries feel the system is not equipping them with the skills needed to get jobs. So that's according to an online poll conducted by PricewaterhouseCoopers and UNICEF. So to unpack the findings, I'm joined now by Barry Vorster, PwC's Head of HR Technology and Culture. Barry, thanks a lot for joining us this evening. Starting findings, I must say, with conducted over 40,000 participants looking at the current education system, not preparing them for the world of work.
No, there seems to be a substantial mismatch between what they are required to do and what they've been prepared to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's across sectors, whether that's technical education or higher education as such, and even going down to the kind of school education systems we have. I just think that there's been an exponential curve in what is required by industry and what universities are provided. A colleague of mine the other day said universities on average are about 40 years behind. I'm not saying that that's true, but I think we are behind, and I even think that in countries like South Africa we're even further behind.
Great, because I want us to talk a little bit about what are the stats looking like. Let's start off with the continent, because this is a global actual statistical conducting. So what is it looking like in the African context, and what does it look like in the South African context?
So the one problem is that we don't have as much good data as we have from OECD or Western countries. But let's say, for one, let's just start with youth unemployment as an indicator. That's at about 53 to 55% at the moment. We'd have to deduce from that some of those people, a large proportion, are unemployed because they just don't have the required skills. Those that even have the skills are not finding the kinds of employment that they need to. So are we even further behind? We probably are, yeah, just statistically. Are we providing those types of skills that children already need to be able to compete globally? Probably not. And if you look at the numbers as well, do young people know that? Yes, they do. Do employers know that? Yes, they do as well. CEOs indicate about 74% of them globally, and a little bit higher in Africa, and specifically in South Africa, indicate that they don't have access to the right skills to be able to invest and grow.
So then where do you get the right skills from if you're not getting them from higher education and training facilities? Where must they get? Because you're saying that young people know that they're not receiving the competencies that allow them to be employable, right, in the world of work. But if they know that, then where are they supposed to get the skills from, if not from higher education facilities?
So Faith, you heard me say, so there's two parts. I think the higher education facilities and organizations are trying very hard to move towards that. I think also there's a problem. Let's just think through that. They're a group of people who probably did not receive the amount of schooling they required to be able to complete or even enter higher education. Mm. And I think for that group of people, we have alternatives now. I think there are a substantial number of organizations now focusing on helping young people in robotics who perhaps didn't have the right educational background or were able to pass maths and science, but do have the potential. And I think some of those organizations, I'm going to say one, there are organizations like Naspers Labs. There are other organizations doing wonderful work with young girls like Techno Girl, where they are providing young women with opportunities to see what it's like to be in a STEM-orientated world, and then go on because they are motivated to do so. And part of what we also need to see is that it's not only a question of education, but people who feel motivated and feel that they can actually see their futures, yeah, are probably more prone to then go off and do these things. And I think the aptitude grit part is probably just as important as the skills themselves.
I mean, when we're looking at the situation right now, you're speaking about youth unemployment and how many young people are getting more and more despondent. Now we're going to bring in the curve of fourth industrial revolution, right? And we're saying that we're going to teach 4IR in schools so that we can capacitate young people. But those lessons need teachers, adequate, equipped teachers who are resourced enough so that they can take them through the various curriculums that are related to 4IR, which obviously speaks to jobs of the future. The question is, do we have those individuals that are equipped enough and resourced enough to actually teach those skills?
So I'd like to say yes, but I don't think we have at this point in time. I do think, again, there are organizations who are trying to work with groups of teachers and upskilling them around robotics, around other parts of the technologies we associate with the fourth industrial revolution. However, we just don't have enough of them yet. And I think we're at a point now where there's a real imperative for substantial change required. Because the children we're talking about don't only need to compete within the South African environment, but they really do need to compete globally.
Yeah. And looking at it, I just want us to have a frank conversation around where we are standing in terms of youth skills and our ability to compete globally. How are we faring in that? Can we send a child from South Africa and say to them, listen, you're quite equipped enough and you're resourced enough and you're capacitated enough to get a job in Denmark, for example?
I think there are children like that. I personally work with a group of young children, and some of them come from rural South Africa, have been through a difficult schooling career, but made it to university and are exceptionally smart, and they could go and work anywhere in the world. But they're probably in the minority, if we're absolutely honest about that. So I do think that if we want to do that en masse and do it at scale, then we as a country, and I really mean everybody, that means government, the corporate sector, and the non-governmental organizations, we really need to think at a level that we've never done so before. Do I think we have the potential? I'm absolutely convinced about that.